When something happens in your life, whether it's invisible, untraditional, small loss, or a tragic, big traditional loss, when something happens to you, you exit the life you used to have. And you do not automatically enter a new chapter or a new life. You go into the place in between the two lives.
What would the world look like if people felt like they mattered? Welcome to the Lead with Love podcast, exploring what it means to lead with love in business and life. I'm your host, Jada Selner, and in this show, I'll share meaningful conversations to help you, the creative, the entrepreneur, the world changer, reach more people, go after your dreams, and serve your community with love. I appreciate you joining me. Now, let's get cozy and start today's episode. Have you ever found yourself feeling like everything looks the same on the outside, but everything on the inside of you has changed? If you've ever found yourself checking out of your life in unexplained ways and not able to fully name it, this episode is for you. We talk about the undercover world of grief, burnout, and reclaiming our lives after experiencing the invisible losses that we often overlook and dismiss. You're listening to the Lead with Love podcast, and in today's conversation, I get cozy with Christina Rasmussen. Christina is an acclaimed grief educator, author of Second First and Where Did You Go?, which have been extremely helpful books for my own family as we navigate grief and loss. Christina is also the host of the Dear Life podcast, founder of the Life Reentry Institute at lifereentry.com. And I actually recently signed up for her Life Reentry class, which has helped countless people break out of what she coins the waiting room of grief, where we're able to rebuild our lives. And Christina describes grief as a catalyst for redefining identity and outlines the process of reentry, where we get to return to our lives. Her work has also been featured at ABC News, Washington Post, and the White House blog. And you can find more of her brilliant work at ChristinaRasmussen.com and secondfirst.com. Christina is just an amazing creator. She's so tapped in, tuned in, and she is on a mission to change the way that we grieve, the way that we live, and how we define our potential in this life and the hereafter. So now let's get cozy with Christina. Christina, I am so excited to have this cozy conversation with you. And we kind of just set the intention for this conversation before we started recording. And I just have to take us back to when we first met, which was actually in Stamford, Connecticut, at Michael Fishman's Consumer Health Summit in 2015.
It was, wasn't it?
Yes. And the wild thing is, and I remember that was like the year of the book when I was writing the Simple Green
Yes, that's
book.
right.
Yeah. And we actually only lived 10 minutes away from each other for many, many years. And now you're in a different state, which we'll probably see more of each other being in different states, but we would keep meeting each other at different events, even though we were just 10 minutes away from each other. And I always love those divine connections of when people come into our lives. And I remember when we had a lunch together at True Food Kitchen in Walnut Creek, and there was something that we were kind of brainstorming. I was in transition and exiting my company, and we came up with, there was obviously co-creation that was happening, but She Builds. I remember you telling me, like, buy that domain, And I bought it and it was $1,800. I never pay past the domain price or anything like that. And it's interesting because that body of work is being birthed right now.
Oh.
And so it's interesting, right? When ideas land that you kind of I don't know why it's here. I don't know what Christina is telling me to do this. I'll do it, but I wasn't ready to embrace it yet. But it's definitely in the second book that I'm writing right now.
Oh my God.
Most likely the title. So I just had to share that with you.
I just got chills because, I remember that night. It was actually a dinner. I don't know. It was dark outside. It was dark outside. Yeah. And I remember this force that I felt when I said it, you have to buy this. You have to get this. You have to. And I always, when I feel like this for someone else's life, I try so hard to convince them to do something, even though I know that, it's your journey and it's your life. But I wanted that for you so much. And it makes me so happy that you did buy it and it's coming to life right now.
Yeah. And before we dive into the many just questions and curiosities and just the vibrancy of who you are in the world, I'm just so excited. I would love to start this conversation with what does leading with love mean to you? And how do you put love into practice in your business, in your life, anything that comes up for you? I would love to know.
This question is actually more important than people realize, or that I realized years ago. I think that, and I just have to tell you, this is such a good question. Nobody has asked me this before, but I have so much to say about it. It's such a good question. I think after my husband died in 2006, love was taken away from me. And I felt like there was no love in my life. And the way out of that pain and grief, it wasn't about finding love. It was about, I love when I have to think about new ways to express something. I just have to tell you, I'm in love with this conversation already. It's about creating a new life. And I don't think I was leading with love during those years. I was leading with fear. I call it the survivor self. I was leading with anxiety and just making sure that my kids had everything they needed. Yes, of course, it was because I loved them, but everything that I was doing in those early years was definitely from a place of just being out of breath every day, carrying the world on my shoulders, being heartbroken and losing love. And the time that I found my way back to leading with love actually was only truly about 1.5 years ago. And that's a long time. Yeah. It's a long time. I'm a very honest person, as you will figure out on this conversation.
Yes.
I don't sugarcoat things. I don't take myself out of the journey of reentry or everything that I do in my work. I'm in this journey. I use this work. I live my life this way. And I was in this race for so many years, and I did create extraordinary things, and I did help so many people, and I did find love. I was in love, and I experienced love in many different ways. Love for a new human being, love for my work, love, but I wasn't leading with love. You see that's why this basic question is so important, and to pay attention to what exactly you're asking. And for everyone who's listening, I hope they ask that question in every aspect of their life. Where are you leading with love, and where are you not leading with love? But 1.5 years ago, it changed completely.
Yeah. So 2 things. I would love to just present your husband's name in this conversation. Do you mind sharing it?
My husband who passed away.
Yes.
Biana.
All right. Thank you. So that initiation was in 2006.
Correct.
And then 1.5 years ago is 2019. Is that, correct. Does that sound right? Okay.
Yeah. A long time.
Yes. So take me to that moment of, I can feel that you know that you embodied it of leading with love 1.5 years ago. So take me to that moment.
The leading with racing and climbing and creating constantly burned me out so much. And even though the intention was to do so much and create new lives for people and provide containers and structure and advice and insight and tools and help the world and save the world, that is what, I call it invisible, an invisible ghost, an invisible loss, an invisible. I had lost love in the way that I used to experience it. And I was trying to find it in creating and building and climbing and becoming. And there's nothing wrong with becoming. And I love the woman I've become. But about a year and a half ago, I couldn't do it anymore. I could not do it anymore. We saw each other at that event. It was a day before I was leaving to move to Austin.
Yeah.
And it was one of the reasons, like, I was changing my life completely. And that was probably June or end of May. And my decision to stop everything, completely cancel events, classes, workshops, reimburse everyone, and walk away happened in February of that year. And I turned around and I said to Eric, who's my husband now, I failed. And it wasn't that I failed in creating all the things that I created, that for a lot of people, it was extraordinary and inspiring, but I hadn't achieved the vision, the exact vision that I had always had in my mind. And it was very specific, and it was always specific. But that dream and that vision was killing me slowly. And physically, my body couldn't keep up with myself because it was leading with getting there and not loving here, I guess.
Yeah.
And you can't last a long time. So I exited another waiting room a year and a half ago and re-entered into a completely different chapter of my life. And a few days after that decision, I called it the execution week, where I reimbursed everyone and turned off everything and stopped everything and all that. A few days after, we got the foundation, which was working on applying for these big grants for Life Reentry clinical trials. They got them, both of them. And I remember thinking at the time, that's just mind-blowing to me, because the moment I decided to walk away, and when I say walk away, I wasn't planning on teaching for quite some time, and I didn't know if I was ever going to teach again. I was maybe going to write fiction, and I will write fiction, but at the time I was going to just step out of everything I had created, completely gone. And I remember thinking to myself, and the success of those 2 grants was huge. And I remember thinking, how in the world, the moment I let go of everything, the universe turned around and said, not so soon and not so fast. Delivered this thing. I was shocked at the time because it happened literally immediately after what I had just done.
Wow.
And I learned so much from that moment, and I re-engineered my whole life from that completely.
Yeah. So before we talk about the re-engineering, and I hear around the invisible, which I can so relate to, and I want to dive into that. But even before that, describe to me the symptoms of burnout. Like, how did you know? Like, I'm at burnout and something has to give, and kind of you were like, I will give it all up.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, burnout is not to be taken, like, it's a very serious event, and it comes from invisible experiences, and it's so hard to see because on the outside we look as if we have it all, and we do. And I did. I have so much. I had so much. I have so much. And it's a confusing state. And so the symptoms were was dreading every day, Jada, every single day. I would wake up in the morning and I would literally close my eyes and say, brace yourself. I had no moment to myself. I was working 24/7. My team would say, it's a really fast train, and if you can't get on. I mean, I do pride myself as being a very intelligent woman, but that intelligent mind can move so fast sometimes that my body actually has not been able to catch up since 2006. And I was driving everyone fast and myself so fast. I couldn't keep up. And I was just dreading everything, like every second of the day. And then I would cry. And, I've been through big tragedies in my life. And I would sit there and cry and cry and cry. And I remember saying, this is a different type of sadness that I had never experienced before. And I called it the Eiffel sadness, the one that comes from tragedy and devastating loss. It's like the Eiffel Tower. It's big. You see it. Boom. You get hit. The moment of impact is devastating. It nearly kills you. And then there's this ocean, under the ocean, the sea sadness that is so deep and buried and invisible that the only way you can see it is just the ripples at the top. You don't know what you're seeing. Until it's too late. And I was suffering from depression for the first time in my life. I couldn't recognize it. I didn't know what it was. For me, everything that was hard in my life, I took head on and I re-entered and I did all these things. And then I discovered this devastating place that I would just sit and cry and cry and cry. And it was darkness. And it was a deep ocean kind of sadness that nothing could take away, nothing could make better. And the only thing that I knew I had to change was the hardest thing to do, to remove the parts that brought in this dark light and change everything. And I changed everything. Yeah.
And you shared the invisible loss. And I actually today signed up for your Life Reentry class. I was like, sister speaks for me. Everything looks the same on the outside, yet everything has changed on the inside. And that's where we break. And I was saying this over and over again. I'm not sure if I know you know a little bit, but from last year, I had just compounded grief of losing my father, who I hadn't had a relationship with in 20 years. At the age of 60, we had to put our sweet fur baby Clementine down, our 13-year-old dog. And then my brother Maximus passed away at the age of 16 in November. And I remember having this conversation with my husband over and over. I was just like, there's just this invisible grief. Like, you can't see it. Like, I know you see me operating and like kind of back to the groove of life, but there's something that's shifting and changing that no one else can see and get. And so I feel you're naming it so beautifully so that people can have that shift and transformation. And I also know that kind of how you're talking about the Eiffel Tower, right? The things that everyone can see externally, but then we also have loss and grief that's unseen. And also what I'm hearing from you is also unconscious to ourselves, that we don't even know that we are in grief and in loss. And if we just name where we are in the world right now, there is collective grief and trauma, and that is happening for us in plans and visions that we had for our lives that are no longer going to move forward according to plan.
That's right. Yes, exactly. And it's a very dangerous kind of experience for people. And this is how we lose people to suicide, because they look like they have it all figured out. They look as if they have a good life, and they don't even know when that tsunami will come out of that sea and hit them. And actually this week, a massive proposal for my new book is going into my agent, and it will travel to all the publishers. And it is about that.
Are you open to sharing a little bit about That, actually, before we go into the third book, that's swimming, because I'm really excited to talk about that. You have two other books that you've written, and what you're kind of talking about. These are the gifts and things that you've turned the hurt and the healing and the loss of your husband into not just healing protocol for yourself, but for a global community. I mean, you have over 500,000 people on your Facebook page for Second First. You wrote a book called Second First. My mom has read Second First, as well as Where Did You Go, your second book. And these are two nonfiction guides, right, for people to heal and to reconnect to themselves and to their loved ones. And also, this has turned into a movement and a business that started from a very personal place of loss and invisible loss. Yes. Well, I wouldn't say, actually, that would be the Eiffel Tower loss. Yeah. And so I'm just curious for you, how you transformed that grief, that loss into a movement that's healing other people, which is also on the other side, we're seeing has also created the heaviness of you needing to kind of let go of. I'm just so curious of how you transform that into a calling into serving other people with Second First, because you've been doing this for the past decade, right?
Yes, correct. Exactly. Actually 10 years. The Second First entity, the company was formed September 10th, 2010. That Facebook page you mentioned was formed October 15th, 2010. So exactly. I know, it's exactly 10 years. And it's been a 10-year journey. And I have to tell you, so he passed in 2006 and he was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer in 2003. And I have to say, and as I'm looking back at everything, my journey in this darkness and this sadness had started in 2003. And then it didn't let up. Between the caregiving years, trying to save his life. We had 2 little babies when he was diagnosed. Isabel was 9 months and Adelina was 2.5 years old. They're now 18 and 20 years old, by the way. And I remember thinking I was going to lose my mind, Chara. I was going to lose my mind. And the day he was diagnosed in 2003, I remember it was snowing. We were in Boston at the time. And I remember the doctor calling and saying to Biana, my husband, you need to come in. We have the results. They found this little lump on his neck. They did a biopsy and you need to bring your wife. And we knew what that meant. But what I didn't know was that it was terminal. And I remember walking in the snow, putting my feet, everything kind of slowed down. Time stopped. When your life changes so dramatically, if you actually go back, I'm a very visual person. If you go back a few seconds now before it, you can see. And I remember stepping into that snow and walking to the doctor's office. And I remember her telling us, this is stage 4, this is terminal. And I remember for the first time in my life, I was immediately dehydrated. Like all of the water of my body was almost taken from my body. And all I could say was, I need water. Like I never experienced this physical response to what I was hearing. And I turned to look at him and he was white, just like a white. And that our life changed. My life changed forever. The innocence was gone. The living the life, like everyone else, as you know, when something like this happens, it's complete. Everything, someone came and blew up my life. And we went on a long 3.5-year journey trying to save his life. We flew to, not only we were at Dana-Farber in Boston with the best doctors, of course, but he found this experimental drug when everything was failing. And he said, I'm going to the Philippines. And I don't share this story very often, but I remember saying to him, what are you talking about? He said, there's this drug in the Philippines, in Manila, Philippines. This is all the way around the world. And they are experimenting. And I'm going to take all of our savings and I'm going to get on a plane and go. And he said to me, and you don't have to come with me. You just stay here with the kids. And he's dying. He wants to get on that plane by himself. And of course, I called my mom from Greece. They came over and took care of the girls who were very young, as you know, at the time. We got on a plane to this 3 flights all the way around the world to this place in the Philippines where they were doing this in a third world country. And he nearly died there. And I had to lie to every airline, every doctor that we were on our way to the hospital from the hotel when he was on the floor. And instead, I hid him in a taxi, and put him on a plane, even though the guy right there says, he doesn't look good. I said, he's fine, he's just tired. I put him on a plane with a bowel obstruction and 2 blood infections and brought him all the way here, back home. And he died 5 months after that. But he got better for a little bit and experienced his next birthday. We went to the Bahamas, even though he was very sick. And then he passed in July 2006. So I've come from this strength place. So when I was climbing, I was building and I was doing, I have this quote that people love, but it's also, there's a hard truth about it. And I say, you can do the impossible because you've been through the unthinkable. But doing the impossible is very, very hard on your body.
Yes. Yes. I think it's so important to name that. And I have a confession to you. I shared with us before we started recording, but this is my first interview. So I actually unplugged, stopped sharing on social, not writing newsletters to my community. And I just said, I'm not hiding, I'm healing. And I took a break from recording and publishing episodes, and I went into what you call the waiting room, which is what you mentioned. And I actually listened to a podcast episode of yours, Dear Life podcast, which any human, I believe, should listen to. Just the delightful coffee conversations with you, with the classical music playing in the background. And I listened to this 4-minute episode, and you were talking about how to remember our loved ones who we've lost, especially during the holidays, because we're about to have kind of going through that this year. And you said hibernation is healing.
Yes.
And so I was like, you put words to what I was saying. I'm not hiding, I'm healing. And it sounds like what you have been doing for these past years, maybe not hibernating, you were healing the world and carrying that weight with you. But there's an invitation that when we need to heal, we need to go in that safe space of the waiting room. Can you tell me a little bit about the waiting room? Because I've been saying I'm in this creative cocoon. I'm not being on social media is an act of self-care and protection. And so I'm just curious, how do you describe the waiting room, which is also, I know you'll go deeper into in the Life Reentry class, which I'm excited for, because I'm putting name and words to what is happening to us on the insides that we have not put words to yet.
And this Life Reentry class that starts very soon is my reentry as well, because I haven't done it in a year and a half. I've done the clinical trials, the Life Reentry that we're doing for the clinical trials behind the scenes, but not for the public. And so the waiting room is such a concept that all the years that I have been talking about this and sharing it, I received thousands of letters from people, whether they read the first book or they heard me talk about it on Facebook or whatever. And they cry and they say, oh my gosh, that's where I've been. This is where I'm at. And I did not know it. And I want to describe it very clearly for everyone who's listening and hearing this for the first time, because the clarity around it is vital to the choices you make in your life. And the waiting rooms in our lives are very confusing because of the way our society, culture, families, friends, mental health world has structured our awareness around these things. So when we don't have the words to process something that's happening to us internally, we actually are not aware of it. We don't know it's happening. Or when something that is completely new to us is taking place, just like it did for me a year and a half ago, even for me, I couldn't see what I need to see. So When something happens in your life, whether it's invisible, untraditional, small loss, or a tragic, big traditional loss, when something happens to you, you exit the life you used to have. And you do not automatically enter a new chapter or a new life. You go into the place in between the two lives. But we think that's our new life. So, for example, I'm going to give you the traditional version. When my husband died in 2006, I was healing. I was doing all the traditional things. I went to see a therapist. I was taking care of my kids. I was waiting for time to heal me. I was struggling. I was taking steps, but not quite really living. But from the outside, I was actually building a new life. I got a new job. I finished my postgraduate degree that I had started before he passed. I looked actually amazing. I looked the best I've ever looked in my life. I was the perfect weight. Not in the beginning. In the beginning, I was too thin, but within the first year or two, I was looking amazing. It was very contradicting to what I was feeling. But I've spent the first 4 years after his loss in the waiting room. I got the job that I thought I needed to get out of fear for paying my bills, all the way until my kids had to go to college. I did all the things I was supposed to do because they were supposed to be the things that everyone is doing. And I thought I was living my life, but I was in the waiting room. I exited that first waiting room that I had been aware of for the first time in my life in 2010, when I left that corporate world and I said yes to this idea and this new life. The waiting room that I exited a year and a half ago was the waiting room, my survivor self. There's 3 selves in the Life Reentry model. And the survivor self is one of them. And that is the part of us that protects us, that keeps us comfortable, keeps us in this state with less pain, but also tries to convince us that success and working hard is the way to be a good person in this life and to do well in the world. And what I didn't know until then was that for me, success and creating this huge, gigantic dream was actually a waiting room. Actually a waiting room. And in my reentry was the moment I let go of that dream. I let go of all the ideas I had about myself, about who I was in the world, who I had become, that people needed me. When I let it all go, I re-entered for the first time. And there's many moments of reentry. You can get the first glimpse. And I didn't go to a waiting room after that. I went to a new life that was supposed to be completely different to the one that I was leaving behind. And I changed so many things. And I remember thinking, trying to process, this was the first time in my life that I didn't experience a catastrophic event. And it changed me. Whatever was happening to me changed me so dramatically. And Jada, from that moment, it was almost like a miracle. I didn't care about achievement. Still don't. I don't care about fame, success, money, anything at all. Actually, my ideal life right now, if I could have it, would be 2 pair of jeans, a couple of t-shirts, a book, and my phone, and a computer to write, because I love to write, but small house. My house is too big right now. and time to be present with everything that's happening today. That's it. I don't want anything else. Nothing at all.
Yeah, it's the letting go, letting it all go so you can be here.
And reentry, so I had to redefine what reentry meant and what it means. It is not a new dream or a big creation. It's about the thriver self. There's the 3 selves, the survivor, the thriver, and the watcher. It is about playing. It's about laughter. Not that I didn't know this before. Of course, I knew it. And it's about just expression of life. It's about being loving, like leading with love, like you said, right? It's about being this, like my experience with you right now. I am present. I am here. I'm enjoying myself. And that's it. Nothing else. Nothing about the future. Nothing about an hour ago. Nothing. I'm moving my hands up in the air. You know, I'm full in this place. And I'm experiencing a moment in my life in the way that I want it to be. Any moments that you have in your life that you don't like, you despise, they are burdens. They are the waiting room. And when you continue to be in those places. So when we hibernate or when we go to heal somewhere, that is a good waiting room. I actually call them, I'm going to have a waiting room day today. And let me tell you about those waiting room days, which I love. First of all, my weekends, I never work during the weekend anymore. None, zero. I used to work 24/7. And the weekends, I do not work. And I have either a Saturday or a Sunday where I choose to shower in the evening before I go to bed instead of the morning. And I stay in my pajamas and eat whatever I want to eat, watch whatever I want to watch. I literally just say, do whatever you want. There's no deadlines. Nobody needs you. And for those who have young kids, there's a way to do this with your young children. Like there's a way to be with them in the present moment and hang and with no agenda and nothing. So I have at least one waiting room day every week. And if I am feeling, so now my meter of feeling unwell is very, 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 what's the word?
It's like tuned in,
Yes.
like the awareness of it. Yeah.
So I'm building a foundation, a Life Reentry Foundation. And it makes me, whenever I work on this, I struggle because everything else now, whether I'm teaching or writing or doing these interviews, my podcast, your podcast, all the things that I'm doing, I have created this beautiful life. And now whenever something is not feeling good, like I notice it. So I used to push through those moments and just keep going. I no longer do that anymore. I stop. I postpone and say, this doesn't feel right. Let me reevaluate. Let me re-examine which pieces of this do I need to let go? Which pieces of this do I need to rewrite? To retell to myself, who do I need to educate? Where am I feeling an expectation here? What is it? And I change it until it's like I've equalized. Like at least until it feels like I can breathe and I can be present and I don't have to worry about things I don't need to worry about.
Yeah. What comes up for me even as I hear that is, breathing room.
Yes.
And a really evaluation of boundaries, preferences, our truth of what's real and what's up for us without not even the fear of, but we have this fear of upsetting people.
Yes.
And
them.
Yeah. And I'm curious, what is like a big opportunity or project that you have said no to or readjusted your commitment to practice that new relationship and trust with yourself, with your body, to have these boundaries and be a protector of your energy and your time and your presence?
It's 100% no for me. I don't see any private clients anymore at all. And I get many, there's many people who would love to work with me privately. And I used to years ago, I used to do it. And I remember saying to myself, I love it. It's great. I love my work with each person, but it's not how I want to spend my life. So every day I have to say no to someone new. Can I have a session with you? Do you do private sessions? Can I book you for the whole day? I mean, I say no to money every day, every day. No. And I said no to income, a lot of income the last year and a half, a lot of it. Like I actually, I have to be honest and say, is that okay? Is that okay? Is that, because my parents worked so hard for every penny,
Yes.
They made, Jada. And was I wrong to do this? Was I wrong to do this? But what I did was very slowly every day, whenever I had a thought about starting to teach again, I have just finished the class, the temple class. We had 145 people from all over the world, and it was extraordinary. It took me about 3 or 4 months to say yes to that. From the first time the thought came back. So I would revisit it every day. How do I feel about this? No pushing through, right? If it didn't feel good, I'm like, no, I'm not going that way until it felt right.
Yeah. So when I talk about leading with love, I say love over metrics. And that's what it sounds like. The decision-making framework for you is I'm making decisions from my heart, and it doesn't make sense financially, doesn't make sense on paper. If I told anyone else about what so-and-so just offered me to do this, but in my body and my heart, it's like, it's a no for now. It could be a no forever and on this earth and in this body, in this form. And I love that daily check-in too, of like, if it's a push, then it's a pause for now.
Yeah.
And
no guilt. And no guilt. Guilt is such an invisible thing. Like, I used to feel guilty if I identified myself as a very hard worker. Like I deliver. This is how I identify myself. And it's all new. It's like the brain maps, right? New neural pathways have been forming in the last year and a half, but they're babies, right? And we'll talk about this in class. So when we start to plug into a new identity in this new place of reentry, what happens is we go in and out of the waiting room. So when we are in the waiting room, we say, well, I'm in the waiting room now. I feel this. And I do cleanses. I write in this. There's this exercise that I do. I reframe things. I change them. I rewrite them. And it's a daily experience. So, for example, for the foundation, which, the dream is wonderful and amazing, but the physical reality structure of the way it's showing up for me right now, it's not working. So I need to change the physical reality of it somehow and change. I'm just using a real life thing, right? That I'm doing right now. And I have a meeting with my board of directors next week. And from now until then, I am going to restructure it in a way that is going to make me excited to have that meeting. Because that is the only way I'm going to live my life.
Yeah.
The only way, Jada. Because I got so many things the last year and a half, the way that I want them to be, with a lot of readjusting, re-engineering, re-entering, doing everything. And I'm like, am I going to die now? am I done? I'm in a really good place. And I'm so present. And actually being present, it's such a divine experience. Like, it's like I am here with you right now.
Yes.
Like, divine experience, isn't it?
The moment by moment decision making. It's almost like you're making your whole life the good waiting room, right? the happy waiting room where I choose moment by moment what is going to feel best for my body, how I want to spend my time, what I want to fuel my body with, or who are the people, right, that I want to invite into my day, into my world. And I think that's such a beautiful dance and process. And it's decades of learning for all of us as humans who become addicted to achievement that we can also express, or how we've linked our worthiness to what we do or accomplish. And I think that's an invitation for all of us. And what I'm hearing from you is I'm unhooking myself from that race of achieving to prove my value and my worthiness, and to just be present and here as I am in this moment.
It's so done. Like, I know who I am, and I know my value in the world. And actually my only value that I admire the most is my ability to have conversations with the people that have passed by in my life, and my written words that can capture the feelings that I experience every day. Anything else, and of course my family, right? My kids and my husband, my parents, my sister, but anything else can come and go. There is a quote that it's not mine. I don't know who said it. I got it from Dr. Rick Hansen, who I interviewed on my Dear Life podcast. And he said it and he was quoting someone else. So we have to find what it is, but I actually keep those words close to me. It goes like this: if you take care of the moments, the years will take care of themselves. Right?
Yeah.
I know. Right?
Yes, I love it. Something I always say is don't put a timeline on your dreams.
Yes.
Like we can have the big vision if we want it, if that feels juicy, inspiring, expansive, exciting, but we don't have to put that timeline, that urgency that is the thing that leads us to burnout if we're not paying close enough attention. I love it. Yeah, I definitely want to find who the original
who said it. Yes.
Right?
Yes, let me know.
Yeah.
Because I'm quoting this person over and over again. And I always say, it's not, I don't have the name.
Yeah. So you mentioned written words in there, and you are a writer. You're a published author. We talked about Second First, a step-by-step guide for life after loss. You talked a little bit about the temple, which I know you mentioned in your book, Where Did You Go? A life-changing journey to connect with those we've lost. I know that practice has been very powerful for my mom and my bonus dad to connect to Max's energy, his essence, his spirit, his messages, his love. Such a powerful book. And I definitely want to link to that in the show notes. But you're in your creation cave right now, working on a third book. Mm-hmm. I know the book proposal process because I'm working on the She Builds book proposal right now. Like I'm in the weeds of it. And I have a curiosity around what is your relationship to the book proposal process? Because I'm just curious, since we're both in it, what is your relationship to that dance? Because it's a different.
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And I was actually, in the beginning, I went to my agent and said, I don't want to write a proposal. Mm-hmm. Let's just go. I've done really well with my books. Like I'm here. Like, she's like, the best way to do this is always with a good proposal. And then I've seen and I saw examples of amazing authors who are writing proposals in their third and fourth and fifth books. And it helps. It helps a lot. So that was my initial, and I'm smiling because I've not shared this with anyone before, but always honesty. Integrity is very important to me. But like anyone who is not honest with me, I must struggle with that. I struggle with it so much. I like, it's an invisible loss from, like, I struggle with it so much. So anyway, so that was done. And then I said, fine.
Yes.
Fine. So I hired an editor who I worked with before, Kelly. She helped me with my proposal for the Where Did You Go book. And we went on our merry way, and we spent, the first 3 months I was being interviewed by her and trying to explain the work for the last 10 years, because this new book is about the invisibility of grief and this ocean that we are that we're swimming in, that could destroy us every single day, and putting Life Reentry to work in that. And to me, the biggest discovery I've made, Jada, the biggest discovery of all, the thing that keeps people stuck in their pain, in their anxiety, in their depression, always comes from experiences that have taken place a long time ago, and they were never seen, validated, or processed. And they're small and seemingly insignificant to the mental health world because they're not under the category of grief. And I'm going to put them there. And they're not small traumas, big traumas. No, these are not traumas. These are experiences that broke your heart at some point in your life. Like my work broke my heart. Like that, I can say it like that. It broke my heart. It gave me my life back, but it also broke my heart. There's a duality that we examine in the book. So this book, I'm a writer, and I write this weekly letter. I've been writing it for 10 years. And every Friday I write this letter to everyone. And it's the best thing. I love writing this letter for everyone. And I wish it felt like I was writing a letter when I write them.
Right.
But it's not like that, because it's almost like putting a really big puzzle together. It's thousands of pieces. So 2 sample chapters are done today. Right. And they were big, like each chapter, I was delivering 10,000 word chapters to my editor, and she's like, this is big. And I said, I have so much to say about reentry from invisible experiences. And for me, this book is, I'm hoping it's going to give words to people that don't know why they feel the way they do.
Yes.
And they will have a map. They will have a tracking device to capture and process and see. I want everyone to go to their therapist and talk about the things that they've learned from this book. Anyway, and this book is not going to be here for another, at least 2 years. It takes 2 years. I mean, right? This is not
even from when the muse lands in your body, and then to get it, like, share it with someone outside of yourself, and then to the book proposal, and then to writing. There's so much in creation, especially in books. And sometimes we have to live an experience before we can even really write the book.
That's right.
There's a like, oh, I'm still living the book. Of course, that's why I can't get to the finish line just yet. Life is still calling me to show up in a way to really be embodied in what I'm saying.
And there is something, I used to be against the 10,000 hour concept, but I've been writing this book for 10 years, and my writing ability of this book it's almost like it's been written on its own. Like, it's weird.
Yes.
It's like it doesn't stop. And I've written 2 other great books. This is already been written in the future. Like, I am just the portal that right now it's amazing. And I don't know, I have no idea what's going to happen next. I don't take it for granted. Like, just because I've been published before, it doesn't matter. I go in with this and I'm looking for a great relationship. Harper One will receive this proposal first, because of my last book was with them, but they're waiting for it. But I'm really excited. I have to say, I'm excited.
Yeah. I love it. And I'm excited to read it. Plant the seed for the 2 year, it's coming 2 years from now, which is amazing of the conversation, and that you're living and breathing it. And I'm curious for you, what's your ritual or your invitation to kind of have as Stephen Pressfield says, right? Like your butt in the seat.
Yeah.
Do you have like a practice, or just your writing process of getting to the work?
Mornings. I can't write at night.
Yeah.
It's like impossible. Like, something is not. So morning. So when I find myself responding to emails in the beginning of the day, I say to myself, stop. I know you want to go to your groups and respond to the homework and there's all these things that are going on, right? And I say, no, you need to go to the book or to the blog or to whatever you need to write in the morning. So I try to, until noon, I try not to have any meetings in the morning. So all of my writing gets done then. I have blocked time on my calendar. I have book writing meetings on my calendar. Nobody can take them from me. And then for the letter that I've been writing for all these years, I mean, imagine every Friday for 10 years without a miss, I've been writing this letter. This has been the biggest, how should I say, the most unexpected thing in my life. To have all these letters that I've written to people. It's like, it's a real relationship for me. I talk about the weekly letter and people wait for it.
Yeah.
And I think one day it was delayed and people were like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm fine. But I do it for me. Like, I have to write about something that I feel deeply, and I have music that plays in the background. I can't write without music.
Have you ever, as I know I want to honor your time as we kind of wrap up this conversation, but I'm curious, to build this body of work for 10 years, to keep expanding on the message through these different books and iterations, like, how have you stayed connected to have that consistency about talking about one topic over and over around grief and reentry, and now diving deeper into the invisible loss that we experience as humans. Like, how do you stay connected and not lose that joy of creation and getting it out to the rest of the world?
Such a good question. And people ask me this, and I say, and this is why I love writing this letter. I believe that nostalgia, solitude, loss is in everything every day. So I write about aging. I write about remembering our childhood. I write about, empty nester. I write about all these experiences. I write about life.
Yes, your life.
And my life and life. And it's always about something that has happened to me throughout the week, but I talk about it in a poetic, indirect way. And like when we were in quarantine, I wrote a letter I called The Garden. And the garden letter was, oh my God, loved by so many people because it poetically took everyone in their yards and on their knees, reclaiming their life through the soil, So it's an interesting thing that I've created for the last 10 years. I write about nostalgia and life and the many thousands of losses we experience every day being alive.
I just want to drink that in. So, Christina, I have a lifetime of questions, and I know that I will have a future conversation with you because there's just so many curiosities buried in me that just want to know more. But I'd love to give you an opportunity. Is there anything else we haven't covered that you'd love to share before we say goodbye?
I want to end with how we began and your question about leading with love. I want to add something there. This means the most to me right now, the most of everything. If I don't feel love and compassion for another human being that I'm interacting with, I shouldn't be interacting with them. If I am interacting with, let's say I interact with thousands of readers on Facebook weekly. Every time I respond, when I read their story or whatever they're saying, I am present. I am there. I have compassion. I feel things for that other person. And it may not be professional, but I think that we need to live our life from feeling love for every human being we're with every day, wherever we are. And if I don't care about something, then I won't run a class. Then I won't try to help someone's life. I have to deeply care about it. And if I don't, then I'm not honest and I'm not genuine. And I'm not willing to live my life that way. So this is leading with love in every way, in all the places. Even when you choose to part with a relationship in your life, you're leading with love for yourself. And I have done that many times because it's not right for me. And it's not going to work out. And I'm very clear about the relationships in my life. Very, very clear. And I'm leading with love for myself. And that's a great sentence, Jada, question. I love that you asked this. I love that you named this with this. It's amazing. And I wish we all lived this way from the beginning to the end. But then we wouldn't be learning and growing, right?
Yes, yes. And I think you're such an authentic expression of being here to put the work out that, I was reading this post from you. You said, this is a full class. This is not a marketing post, not a sales pitch. This is here to save someone's life. Yes. Please pass it along to those who need it. And I think that's the calling, the work that you create is such an authentic expression of who you are, and the work that you're being called to do is really changing and saving people's lives. So thank you for just bringing all your brilliance to the page. And I just love and adore you and your work.
Thank you for saying that. By the way, when I wrote that post and I'm like, people think so many things. I'm like, trust me, the amount of personal friends have said to me, oh, I want to do this class. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to put it here, but I want them to know this is for them. I have enough. There's enough for the class. We can go now. We can leave. We can close the doors right now. And people are so used to being marketed and sold every single day for money. And I want to create a different reality for the world. I have chosen to come back to do this because it matters to me and it matters to the person who is receiving this. And that's it.
Yes. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you, Jada, for having me today. It was awesome.
Thank you so much for your heart and attention and listening to Lead with Love. You can always get the links and resources mentioned in each episode over at leadwithlovepodcast.com so that you can build a sustainable business and live a creative life on your terms. If this message, Leading with Love, resonates with you and you want to take a stand for remembering that there are humans with beating hearts behind the numbers, I would love for you to subscribe so you never miss an episode and leave an honest review. It would mean the world to me, and it also helps more people spread more love in the world, which we really, really need. I also love hearing from you. So as you're listening, take a screenshot, share your favorite takeaway, and tag me on Instagram and Facebook at Jada Selner. I really appreciate you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.